and welcome to Market Insight, your trusted source for understanding the complexities in the commodity and currency market. Each day, we delve into the forces that drive prices. We uncover emerging trends and equip you with the knowledge to make informed investment decisions. I'm your host, Adesoa Iremosele, and I'm being joined by Gbolahan Olojede. He's a policy and public affairs analyst, and together we would be providing you with actionable insight. Now, if you're looking for a platform to advertise or showcase your products to a larger audience, Market Insight is the show for you. This is an online market space, so do well to reach out to us on all our social media platforms at Souk News. Now, moving right into the first segment of the show, where we talk about issues in the commodity market. Recently, there was a shocking report that stated that Nigeria has been ranked second globally among countries with the lowest cost of living, and that's according to NUMBEO's Cost of Living Ranking 2024. Now, NUMBEO is the world's largest cost of living database. The cost of living is the amount of money needed to sustain a certain comfort level in a location. And the cost of living covers basics such as housing, groceries, taxes, and healthcare. Now, Pakistan was ranked as the country with the lowest cost of living, while Nigeria and Libya came second and third, respectively. India, Afghanistan, and Kenya were ranked 4th, 5th, and 6th, respectively. At the bottom are Switzerland and Bermuda, which are ranked as the most expensive countries with the highest cost of living. This is quite interesting that Nigeria, despite all the challenges we seem to be facing, we are still ranked as second place when it comes to the lowest cost of living. Now, thank you very much, Gbolahan, for joining us to discuss this topic. Good morning to you, Gbolahan. Kindly unmute your mic so we can hear you in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, given the economic, of course, this report comes as a shock because, given the economic challenges that countries face. Now, can you give us your initial reaction to this ranking? What do you think about it?
Well, I think it mirrors exactly the reality of the situation, especially once you try to, put all the countries that are ranked on a single currency. If you do that, what you will find out is that it is actually very cheap to live in Nigeria. Anybody who lives in Lagos and just make a cross to Accra will perfectly understand what I'm saying. The cost of living in most of those other places is way, way, way above Nigeria. That is, I still remember the shock I had when I had to rent a house for the first time in the US. The amount I was paying for a 2-bedroom apartment in Lagos was what I paid for a studio. What I was paying in a year in Nigeria for a 2-bedroom apartment was what I paid for a month for a studio apartment in the US. So these things are there once you decide to convert to denominate everybody on the same currency. The cost of living in Nigeria becomes very cheap. As a matter of fact, even in the space of healthcare, I'm reliably informed that people are coming to Nigeria to come and get certain procedures done because the cost of doing the same procedure outside of the country is unbelievable. It's totally, totally unaffordable. A middle-class person in Nigeria can see a dentist. He can go see his ENT doctor. You try that in the UK and see what you will cough out to obtain all those services. So in terms of cost of living, it might not be out of place that report is actually correct.
Well, the report mentions essentials like housing, groceries, taxes, and health care. Now, can you elaborate on the specific areas where Nigeria's cost of living is significantly lower than other countries? Because, we understand that these prices vary from location to location. So how did they come about this ranking?
Exactly what I was trying to explain. Once you change the currency to the same basis and you say, all these costs, can we express all of them in dollars? If we express all of them in dollars, you don't even need to go very far. Just go to Ghana near you here. And you begin to find out that the cost of even Coca-Cola in Nigeria is cheaper than Coca-Cola in Ghana. A tuber of yam in Nigeria is cheaper than a tuber of yam in Ghana. Not to talk of when you now cross to Europe and you see what you really cost of living. The cost of your electricity, if you convert it, I've already expressed that common denominator is necessary for this report to make sense at all. So you take your electricity costs in the UK, for example, or all the other costs, even transportation costs in the UK. Those things are much more expensive than what we pay in Nigeria when you denominate everything in a common currency. You talk about food, talk about transport, talk about housing. I use an example of the house where I lived when I lived in the US. The amount I was paying for 1 year for a 2-bedroom in Anthony Village in Lagos then was what I was paying for a studio apartment for a month in Houston. So these are the way these things are. But you see where the flaw begins to come in is that you also now need to talk about how much do people earn in those societies? What are the safety net that has been provided by the government in those societies? By the time you start to factor all those things in, the complexion of the report might begin to change. But if you're just basing it strictly on the cost expressed as a common currency, Nigeria becomes a very cheap place to live in. Even the fuel that is very expensive now, when you take a cost in euro and you convert it, you will be amazed at what you will find.
All right. Now, some experts have questioned NUMBEO's methodology, in bringing about this results, and they've argued that it relies heavily on the user's submitted data and all of that, that may not entirely represent the society. Now, what are your thoughts on the validity of this ranking? And, are there alternative assessments to Nigeria's cost of living you suggest, should be considered?
I think a more comprehensive assessment would be better. An assessment that considers things like the minimum wage, what people earn and their capacity to earn, that considers the infrastructure environment, and the general standard of living. The standard of living is different from the cost of living. So if we factor in all these other costs, the safety net that has been provided by the government, all those things are important context to have a more robust analysis. But if we single out just the cost of living and we start to use a common currency, say the dollar, to express it, what that report says is what we're going to get. It will show that it is cheaper to live in Nigeria than to live in Ghana or in UK or Germany or America. That is what we're going to get. So for me, the results of that particular report has isolated only the cost of living, and if you do that, it may not be comprehensive enough to make other judgments. So the context is important. And unless we factor in all those other things, we won't have a report that is robust enough to speak to certain gaps and challenges that are within the country.
All right, now, while a low cost of living might sound appealing, it often reflects underlying economic challenges. Now, how does this ranking align with other available data about Nigeria's economic performance, such as GDP growth, unemployment rate, and even poverty level?
Yeah, you see, by the time you go and look at those countries that are ranked close to us. So you see Pakistan is number one. What is there to envy about Pakistan economy? You even see countries like Afghanistan, which other one, close to where we are. So what that is saying is that maybe because the disposable income is very low in those environments. Even India is there. If disposable income is low, whatever you produce, you have to price it within the context of the ability of the consumers to buy. Otherwise, then you will not be able to sell what you're producing. So the costs dovetails down all the way to the producers, such that they produce only what there can be an effective demand for. So the cost of living is not just about what it costs to buy things. It's also a function of the capacity of the demand of the consumers to consume those things. If they cannot consume it, then if you price it above their capacity to consume, you'll be out of the market. So some of these things, there are complex interplays that are out there. Part of what I've pointed attention to now, which is to ask ourselves, what are the countries that have been, put close to us in that ranking? Are those the countries we want to be like? Who wants to be like Pakistan? Or are we setting our target on a country like Afghanistan? Or, we are looking further up. Therefore, we must look at all the other interconnected rankings or activities, not just isolate the low cost of living. But what does low cost of living mean anyway?
Well, of course, Nigeria is not prone to some of the disasters some of these countries experience. Now, comparing the cost of living across countries, this can be a complex, activity. But how does Nigeria's ranking compare to its regional neighbors, and what factors might very well explain these differences?
The cost of living in most of our neighboring countries is actually higher. A very good example that I am aware of, because I used to go to Ghana in time past. The one I'm aware of is Ghana. When you leave Lagos and you go to Accra, the cost of living in Accra will embarrass you. We're starting from rent to the cost of a tuber of yam, to the cost of a bottle of Coke, will actually shock a lot of Nigerians to know that the cost of living is much higher in some of our neighboring countries. Okay, for us as a people, we now need to begin to interpret this data or this report within the context of so many things. Otherwise, there are people who might even start rejoicing that we have a low cost of living. Yes, you might tell yourself, yeah, maybe there's a cost to rejoice somewhere there. I don't know, but I think we should shift attention to actually the standard of living and not just the cost of living. Standard of living is a bit more comprehensive. It talks about the education, it talks about healthcare, it speaks about infrastructure and the environment. Everything in totality is what the standard of living will speak to. And if we today have a report on standard of living, I am not so sure about how high-ranking a country like Nigeria will be.
All right. Considering our exchange rates, wouldn't it be said that this ranking is based on the fact that our currency has depreciated greatly? So they are comparing it to the official or the currency used globally, which is the dollar. Now, compared to the dollar, our naira would seem, quite minute. Now, do you think that's the perspective they are coming from, or are they, where are they supposed to actually come to Nigeria and see the standard of living in the country before bringing about this report?
Well, like I said, the report has focused on cost of living and not standard of living. And one of the assumptions that this is based upon is that you have to do a conversion to a common currency. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to start comparing oranges with apple. By the time you convert everything to dollar, you're also looking at several other countries, not just the naira. That is when you can say, oh, an apple for an apple is 1 naira here, it is 90 kobo in that other place. So it is cheaper where it is 90 kobo. What you're saying, You can even glean it when you look at Nigerian Stock Exchange, for example. In today's Naira terms or dollar terms, you'll be surprised that there are not more than 2 stock on the exchange that are up to $1. You know, I know Seplat is more than $1 and probably Airtel. All the other stock are less than $1. So it's the same thing. Someone who has, say, 1,000 Naira in Nigeria today, even in Lagos, can eat. But 1,000 Naira in America is less than $1. So if you take less than $1 and walk into an eating place, can you eat in America? Can you eat in UK? Those are what cost of living will project to you. And the truth, when you look at those things, it will appear as if there's nothing. I think the report, as far as low cost of living is concerned, is okay. Once you denominate the currency across, make it only one currency, which is the dollar. Even when if this had been done, even 10 years ago, when dollar was not this bad, or even 20 years ago, when I lived in the US, I left the US in 2006. So that is about 17 years ago. 17 years ago was when I was telling you that the cost of the place I left in Lagos and the one I took in Houston were wide apart. That was 17 years ago, even when dollar was not as bad, when Naira was not as bad as it is today. So those things are there. We just need to focus our attention beyond cost of living into a standard of living, which will put in all those other factors that Nigeria are concerned about and that will make them to dispute this kind of a report that, considering what I'm facing, how can these people be saying Nigeria has a low cost of living? But then, how low your cost is also dependent on how much you earn, your disposable income. What is low to a man who earns 100 may not be low to a man who earns 50.
Indeed, indeed. Now, what are the potential implications of this ranking for Nigeria? You know, could it impact foreign investment, migration patterns, or even social unrests? What exactly is the implication of this?
The implication could include the fact that, of course, foreign people, for example, when you look at Nigerian Stock Exchange, I was reading a report that said between October and December, the volume of money that portfolio investors brought into Nigeria's economy doubled. They brought it onto the exchange to come and make money anyway. You know, so if your currency is cheap, you should be able to make the best of it if you are producing. And as you continue to produce, then the currency will start to appreciate in value. Unfortunately, much of that has not happened. Our currency devaluation has not attracted foreigners or foreign investment into Nigeria as much as we would have loved to see. And until that happens, that is when we can begin to see the effect of coming to a low currency exchange place and helping to build the value of that currency by production of goods and services. But we're yet to see that manifest.
Very well, because of course Nigeria has been looking to get foreign investments for a while, at least since the beginning of this of this tenure, of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He has been seeking for this. Do you think this is a good time, to actually see all of this come to effect?
Well, there are still some other economic distortion here and there that we need to be able to deal with. So there are still some concerns for investors. There are still concerns around the stability of the currency. Although the currency is cheap, but the volatility is not comfortable. So it could be 1,200 today, by the next day, maybe 1,300 or 1,350 in the open market. So that level of volatility is not comforting. We need to be able to pilot the exchange rate to a level where it becomes more stable and someone can plan with it. So if I'm bringing, that's on one part. On the other part are things like security. Security issues in some part of Nigeria is not something to write home about. So although we are going out there asking people to come, those people we're asking to come are also reading the news. So when those news are out there, it doesn't encourage them to come. So things around uncertainties do not help foreign investment to come as much as we need to. So the government is aware of this distortion, and I believe they will start to move against them so that we can record more successes with foreign investment.
Very well. Nigeria has, of course, the Nigerian government has responded, officially to this ranking, so to speak. What policies or initiatives do you think should be put in place to address the underlying economic factors that influence the cost of living in Nigeria?
Okay, I think the cost of living in Nigeria could even be much better than it is today. So if we deal with certain things like inflation, and my approach, my recommendation to dealing with inflation is to look at critical drivers and see how we can bring down those critical drivers. A very important critical driver is food inflation. So even when inflation is, say, 28% plus, you will see food inflation being 30% plus, which shows that the food inflation is a critical driver of the composite inflation figure. So can we do something about food inflation? The analysis has been there forever. Government has made certain promises. I still remember the July speech of the president, where 500,000 hectares of additional land is to be cultivated. We have talked about how we're going to be able to, farm for 12 months in a year and all of those things. How much of those has happened or have happened as at now? We need to move away or move beyond the talk and begin to walk the talk. If we deal with that, food inflation alone, here is what will happen. The inflation, general composite inflation figure will go down. The so-called low cost of living will go even further lower. Disposable income of Nigerians will increase, which means they will be able to consume other items other than food, and we begin to have the multiplier effect of this in the economy. We also must fix security issues, because part of what I just discussed right now, it is arguable that part of the problem is insecurity in those plains where a lot of farming takes place. A very important place where farming takes place in Nigeria is Kaduna, as well as Plateau. These guys are huge farming states. But from time to time, there are these insecurity matters that disturb the farmers. They leave the farm, or they cannot harvest, or they cannot even plant sometimes. So whatever we need to do to continue to improve the security environment in those places will also help us tremendously as a country to begin to get the fruits of the work of the current administration.
All right. Now, can a consistently low cost of living, be sustainable in the long term? Are there potential drawbacks or hidden costs associated with this ranking?
Low cost of living is not sustainable. Just like a cheap currency, it's also not something that will continue to go on forever. Therefore, we have to be deliberate about what we are doing. It could be argued that low cost of living that we are enjoying right now is because the standard of living is also very low. So by the time we improve the standard of living, and people get electricity and they have to pay for it, and people get water and they have to pay for it, and the roads are there, and there are some of them are tolled and others, and we have to pay for it. People have healthcare and they have to pay for it. And by the time all those things are there, the low cost of living that we are speaking about today might not exactly be as low any longer. But for now, let's enjoy what we have, but we have to be careful of not dwelling on low cost of living, because the real place you want to be is on the appropriate standard of living, not cost of living.
Right. Now, while some, you've mentioned this earlier, because while some benefit from the lower living cost, Others might struggle with poverty and limited access to essential services. How does this ranking reflect potential inequalities within the Nigerian society?
This report does not really capture that. A report that will have captured that would be a report that focuses on standard of living. But if you're just talking about cost, in fact, by the time you go into the deprived, poor people's enclave, say in the suburbs or in the villages, their own cost of living is even much cheaper. But what is their standard of living? So you have a farmer who is there, the vegetables are behind him, he has yams in his barn. So he can feed and he can say, oh, what is the cost of living? How much is rent in Usefari that I pay on a monthly basis? So my cost of living is very cheap. But the question is, he has no access to education. People are still getting wheeled, pregnant women getting wheeled on wheelbarrow to the nearest healthcare center when there are complications. So healthcare, education, and some other infrastructure, sometimes to even get his goods out of the farm to the market is a problem. So while his cost of living is cheap, his standard of living is poor, in fact, very poor. So this report is not all embracing, which is why I've been saying we need a report that is more robust, that focuses on standard of living, which involves a lot more things than the cost of living.
All right. Now, a low, cost of living can sometimes indicate limited economic development. Now, what steps should Nigeria as a people take to ensure its growing economy doesn't compromise essential services and standards, of living for its citizens?
Well, the government has been making promises. I want to believe that the government is also conscious about some of these issues that are impeding the kind of standard of living that we would have loved to see. That is why, even right from the days of before election, the days of the manifesto, you can see what everybody was talking about as far as how to make the economy better. We're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about healthcare, about education. But the question will be how far we are progressing in each of these areas that we have listed. This is in the space of doing, and it is much more important than in the space of speaking about it. In my of statistics assessment, I think we are slower than we ought to be in several of these areas. However, that does not mean that the government is not aware of it or that it is not trying to do something about it, but we must continually tell the government that we think that you're slow about taking us to all those areas that you have made promises about, even right from the campaign times.
Okay, now, Bolahan, let's hear your final thoughts before we move on to the next segment of the show.
Okay, on a final note, it's important to know that the report focusing on cost of living, using a common currency for all the countries that were assessed, that going by that, this particular report might actually be correct. However, we must move beyond focusing on cost of living. The right focus should be on the standard of living, which is more embracing and putting all the other factors that the cost of living has not taken into account. We can only wish Nigeria a great success at whatever we set out to do, especially now that we seem to be in a very challenging economic environment.
All right, Bolahan, thank you very much. But would implore you to hold on, because you would have to also give your input on the next segment. We'll go on a quick break now. When we return, we'll delve right into the currency market. Stay with us.
My name is Dr. Rafiu Oladipo.
My name is Baba Jalal Repega.
I'm Reverend Juliet Benite.
I'm Godio Didi.
My name is Professor Oladokun Sulaiman Olarawaju.
Sook News is on the ground, loading.
Very enlightening, very educative, and entertaining.
Thank you to Sook News.
So I'm happy that Sook TV has come into existence.
I'm happy to be here in the Sook News.
I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and keep watching news that makes sense.
As Browning said, one's extension of one's reach should not exceed one's grasp, or what is heaven for? And I think Sook News is doing that.
Africa needs a voice of truth, and Sook News has become one of them. And get ready, get ready, get ready.
And keep watching.
Keep watching Zook News.
Keep watching Sook News. It's a place to be.
Keep watching Sook News.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Mase Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Sook Enlightenment.
Welcome back. Now we'll move right into the currency market, and we still have our guest, Bola Hon Olojede, is on standby. And we noticed in recent times that the official exchange rate has not been updated on the CBN website. We wonder why. However, the foreign exchange rate in the parallel market for today, being Tuesday, the 30th day of January 2024, is as follows. The US dollar was buying at 1,445 naira and selling at 1,455 naira. The pound was buying at 1,830 and selling at 1,850 naira, while the euros, on the other hand, was buying at 1,540 and selling at 1,560. Now, to you, Bolahan, what do you think, about this? About the CBN not updated the official forex website? What are your thoughts? Okay, kindly unmute your mic, Bolahan, so we can hear you in the studio.
Okay. I don't want to guess the reason why CBN might have done that, or have not done what it's supposed to. So let's assume maybe it was just an omission. So whoever is in charge is probably hearing what everybody is saying about not updating it, and we'll go right there and put an update in there, because people are watching not just within Nigeria, but also outside of Nigeria. And communication is very important as far as currency issues is concerned.
Indeed. We also noticed that in the parallel market, the dollar prices, keep increasing, by the day, which of course is due to the shortage of dollar in the Nigerian banks, basically. Now, how can this challenge be curbed?
Unfortunately, I don't think there's a microwave solution to the dollar problem. The dollar problem has been creeping in on us for years. In those periods of we were not paying attention because we had money, we squandered the money. Production of goods and services are very poor. If as a country, the only thing that we really offer to the world is crude oil. Crude oil accounting for maybe like 90% of our foreign exchange earnings. And come to think of it, even the crude oil we're not producing in the right level of quantities. It is expected that we were going to get to this position someday, and here we are. Unfortunately, the long-term solution to this will involve Nigeria being able to produce goods and services that it can offer to the world and earn foreign exchange. That is what will assure a sustainably stable currency. Right now, the measures being put in place, in my assessment, are measures to keep us going. So we have a lot of obligations on the CBN windows that we must meet. So whatever we need to do to ensure that some of those obligations are being met and the country is kept afloat while we think through and are able to implement a more enduring policy and also wait it out. Like I started with, there is no microwave solution to dollar supply. You can't snap your fingers and get them. We must work at it.
Okay, now we see that there is shortage in dollar supply in the official market, but there seems to be a lot of it in the parallel market. We had a guest on the show yesterday, and in his opinion, he said the parallel market should be declared a fraudulent aspect of trading forex, in that anyone who is selling in the parallel market, selling dollar on the street and all of that, should be arrested. Do you agree with that?
Okay, let me backtrack a little bit and talk about some of the measures that I think government is trying to do. I read a piece of news saying the president has directed that NMPC sales proceeds should come directly to the CBN. That will introduce a bit of transparency into that space. Don't forget that like 90% of our foreign exchange earnings is from this crude business. So an NMPC has been handling that hitherto. They collect the money. Of course, the law allows them to meet their own obligations from the money, and then they render the balance to us. But government is now saying, bring the old money. When the money is coming, let it come to CBN. Then that could help if it is handled with discipline, because that level of transparency, if there are some hanky-panky that has been going on before, it is believed that those will not be able to continue under this current measure. The black market, or call it the parallel market, it's not a market that you can plan with. It's not the formal market, and it comes with its own serious challenges. Sometimes you can't even separate true market situation from sabotage. There are all sorts of things that are going on there. Someone, I was discussing with pointed my direction at the fact that states are having more money, more naira being allocated to them. So there is a lot of liquidity in the system. Because of that excess liquidity in the system alone, there could be more naira chasing the dollar in the parallel market, which will make the price to continue to go up. That is on one side. There has also been theories around some sort of sabotage in which some people are just interested in whatever they can do to make the currency come up, to make the dollar rate come up, because when it goes up, they make money. That is on the sabotage. But you see, what is more important that is easier to deal with for me, that we must deal with, not easy to deal with, is the issue, continue to focus on the issue of supply. If there is enough supply of the foreign exchange in the official window, the gap between the official window and the parallel markets will narrow, and we can begin to see some semblance of stability in that space.
Okay, we shouldn't forget the fact that the CBN is also, looking for measures to clear up the forex backlog, and that has been one of the focuses lately. And now they also are, they also have the need to, make sure that we have more forex in our reserve. How do you suggest, as a policymaker yourself, as a policy, expert yourself, what do you think the CBN should do in this situation?
Number one, the CBN must continue on its agenda of, improving on the transparency of its activities and the activities of other people within the economy that will impact what the CBN is trying to do. There must also be a continued handshake between what the fiscal end of things is doing and what the monetary is trying to do, which I believe is part of what this particular administration is trying to drive. Where there is a disconnect, we have a problem. I'm also aware that the CBN has announced the stoppage of some of those interventions that probably have accounted for all sort of opaqueness in the way our monetary policies have been run in the past. This will also help a great deal. But beyond all of those monetary policy is the realization that monetary policy alone will not be enough to dramatically change the fortune of the Naira. It will help a great deal, no doubt, but it will not be enough. What will sustainably help is a more synchronized approach that sees the reality that we must produce goods and services to offer the world and earn foreign exchange. Whatever we can do to drive that process must be an integral part of our policies going forward. And that may not be a monetary policy. It might actually be in the fiscal area and investment promotion.
All right. So what role do you think the black market is playing in all of this, bringing about the unavailability of dollar in banks as we have it in Nigeria today?
Oh, it's an alternative market. The formal market may decide not to recognize it, but it is there, and it is meeting some needs. You see, the truth is, because there is starvation of dollars on the official window, if you apply today, the question is, when are you going to get it? So a lot of people who have needs that are more urgent and cannot wait for the queue at that window, we go to the alternative market and access foreign exchange. This is what has been happening. So it's an alternative market, and people who need foreign exchange and cannot queue up at the official window will continue to patronize them. So they are there as an alternative market. That's my opinion. It may not be recognized, but it is there.
At what point, Gbolahan, do you think we are going to get out of the woods? Because this whole dollar rates challenge seems to, intensify by the day. What do you think can be done to immediately address it so that we can, have our Naira here appreciated? And, it's actually ironic, having Nigeria as a country with a very low cost of living, and still we are here battling with inflations on almost everything due to the increase in dollar rates and all of this. At what point are we going to get out of the woods, Gbolahan?
It's going to be a journey. I foresee a situation in which, in a time not so long, in the area of PMS, that we might get some reprieve from there. The private refinery seems to be coming closer and closer every day to commercial production. The government refinery also seems to be coming closer day and day to commercial production. If we get to commercial production with these refineries, it might do two things. Number one, the amount we have been spending, the FX we spend importing this product, maybe we'll be able to save the chunk of those. Number two is that we might produce much more than we can consume, and we have the benefit of exporting product outside of the country and earning forex. Don't forget that part of what I have said is that we need to produce goods and services that we can offer to the international community and earn foreign exchange as part of the critical ingredients to stabilize our currency. So the refinery space that I just mentioned can help a little bit in that direction. Number two is in the area of food production. We have more than enough in this country to feed the entire West Africa. Are we going to do it? What steps are we taking to be able to do it? It's a big question that we need to ask ourselves. One thing that 200 million people could also boast of is a good human capital in that we can be deliberate about cultivating even for export. We can be deliberate about producing programmers, IT professionals for export, and also some for our own internal, providing solution for our own internal economy. But we can be deliberate about producing more than we need and exporting. Even the JAPA that we have expressed about the healthcare space, healthcare professionals are still in high demand outside of Nigeria. So we can be deliberate about it to say, look, Nigeria, we need 10. But how about we produce 20 and be in a position to export the additional 10 to other places? So these are thinking generally, if you look at this example I've given, they are examples that are pushing us in the direction of producing goods and services that we can offer the world and be able to earn foreign exchange, because those are the sustainable way to stabilizing our currency in the medium to long term. As far as the microwave solution is concerned, or short term, don't let me use microwave. As far as short term is concerned, we have to wait it out. I don't think that there is a short term solution to that naira exchange problem. I don't think so.
Well, thank you so very much, Gbolahan, for your time on Market Insights today. It has really been insightful. Many thanks to you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and that's the size of our show today. Market Insight makes a return same time tomorrow with another insightful package. Remember, you can advertise and promote your business on this show simply by sending a direct message to any of our social media platforms at Souk News. I'm Adesua Iromoseli, and have yourself a wonderful day.